everybody.
Hi everyone.
Welcome to What's Up Watchtower. And today we're coming to you because something has recently turned into a news story that really has captured our attention and the attention of Jehovah's Witnesses and ex-Jehovah's Witnesses alike.
Alright, so this is a subject that we do want to cover, but it's very daunting to cover it in length, and that is the subject of child sex abuse within the Jehovah's Witness organization. And we obviously aren't going to get into all of it here, but the only reason that we wanted to cover it is because this is recent. This is something that happened this past week. And we have a reason beyond wanting to just expose what is happening within the organization. But there's also a purpose to our cause, and we're going to talk about that after we talk about this news story.
Right. And so the story, the first original video that many of you I'm sure have seen, which is why it was brought to the attention of the media, is the video that was captured via a cell phone by what I consider a hero, Waymon Ivery, who actually had gone after he had noticed Jehovah's Witnesses in door-to-door ministry on his street. He decided to do some very quick research and caught these Jehovah's Witnesses just as they were leaving the neighborhood and confronted a man by the name of Waymon Ivery and basically said, "Are you Waymon Ivery?" The man identified himself as that person, and Waymon Ivery proceeded to tell him, "You are a convicted child predator, child sex offender." And that's the video that really got everyone's attention, and he had proof. This is something that it's not just a wild accusation by some apostates.
Yes, he knew who this person was because he had heard a story from a former witness who had been molested by this man. That's what I'm assuming the story was. We don't know all the ins and outs of the story other than he already knew who this person was. He had checked him out on the child sex offender registry and found out that this man, Waymon Ivery, was living within a mile, I believe, of where he was living. And he decided to memorize the guy's name and face so that if he ever found him working in his neighborhood, that he would be able to confront him. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, talk about being prepared. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
So now we pick up with just 2 days later, that video was gone from YouTube, by the way. Many people had shared that video and it was completely removed. The reasons that YouTube removed it is that it violated a person's privacy, but we know that the content of that video is so important. Hence, it was picked up by a Colorado Springs news station, Channel 5 in Colorado Springs, and they talked about it because this is, of course, their local area. And the video that we have linked below is the video we're going to talk to you about right now. And please, just watch this and just really pay attention to what is going on here.
A recent YouTube video has many concerned over the way a religious group does business.
Jehovah's Witnesses are coming under fire for allowing a convicted child molester to go door to door on their behalf.
News 5 investigative reporter Carlos Vergara looked into the matter. He joins us live in studio. You found out the Springs congregation takes steps to protect itself, but could be putting your family at risk. Tell us about it.
Rob, Elizabeth, this all starts nearly a quarter century ago when Waymon Ivery was convicted of first-degree sexual assault of a 9-year-old girl in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He served time for the crime and says he turned his life around, in large part to Jehovah's Witnesses. But some aren't so forgiving when it comes to the way Jehovah's Witnesses knowingly allow him to approach your homes, all the time keeping it at arm's length when it comes to their own church.
So the first thing I think is really important to point out to everyone viewing this is that the Jehovah's Witnesses, the organization, knowingly allowed this man, who is a convicted child sex offender, they knowingly let him come to your door on a Saturday morning when your children are at home, maybe watching cartoons, maybe you're doing errands around the house, maybe they answer the door?
How many times as a witness have you been in service and a child under the age of 12, let's say, answers the door, and obviously, you know, we aren't going to talk to them without their parents' permission, so we ask, you know, are your mom and dad around? And how many times did they say, no, they're not around? So this is a danger. And the thing that they also state is that, and you'll see it in this video, that witnesses go out in pairs. That's not always true. And even if they are going out in pairs, how many times do they mark down the house that they went to? Who was there? Who answered the door? Do they have children? Were there toys in the yard? You know, making their notes about the occupants of that house so that they can do a return visit.
And keep in mind, too, that just as they mentioned in the news article, the Jehovah's Witness organization knows about it, but do the average members of the congregation know about it? Do they know that the brother that's sitting right next to them in their car, that they're driving the group in field service, do they know that 15, 20 years ago, that brother was convicted and served time for a first-degree sexual abuse of a minor, of a child, 9 years old? Do they know that? And actually, we can mention back to the original video, there was something so interesting in the original video that Waymon Vargas, hero, captured with his cell phone. Robin, you want to talk about that real quick?
Oh yeah, so I shared this with one of my coworkers, and she was amazed, as were we, that the other gentleman that was in the car group, who couldn't have been any younger than 30, he was not a young man, sat in the car with his hands over his ears like this. He didn't want to hear it. How? This was like a physical manifestation of exactly what Jehovah's Witnesses do on a daily basis, covering their ears, not wanting to hear the truth about their religion.
Right. And the man who was accused in that group flatly denied it. Nope, that is not true.
You got it all wrong, he said.
Well, as we continue the news story,
no, he did not.
And I've regretted it ever since.
66-year-old Waymon Ivery agreed to this TV news interview so long as we wouldn't show his face.
I had no idea, no clue as to the total effect that it would have.
first of all, he admitted to doing it on camera when confronted with the television news.
The effect it would have on the 9-year-old stepdaughter he molested 2 decades ago.
I know that I hurt a little person.
But years later, what has people up in arms is the fact that Jehovah's Witnesses, knowing his past, allowed Ivery to go door to door on behalf of the religious group, a convicted child sex offender, to knock on your door.
So here's proof that these whistleblowers and heroes like Barbara Anderson, what she has been saying for over 15 years is true. They always claim these are apostate lies, these things were blown out of proportion. Guess what? This is the proof that it's happening. And if it happened this time, you gotta know it's happening hundreds, thousands of times around the world, that child molesters, and in this case, he's a known convicted child molester, is allowed to go into neighborhoods and knock on people's homes, people who have children, without anybody knowing about it.
So we went in search of answers directly from the people that go door to door. We found them in the area of Lazy Lane Circle in northeast Colorado Springs when I was approached by 2 of the women.
My name's Nina, and this is my friend Trudy.
They were eager to speak to me about their mission before I identified myself as a reporter for News 5. But then they quickly went on their way. So we approached them. This time, they weren't so eager.
We'd appreciate it if you followed our request.
Yes, ma'am, but I've done that, and I have no answer.
After Jehovah's Witnesses had visited Peter Conroy, we knocked on his door.
Do I think that such a person is going to, drag off, a minor member of my household? Highly unlikely. But, it's always possible.
Conroy says that at some point, after paying your debts to society and changing your ways, you should have a second chance. Even better, says Conroy, members of Jehovah's Witnesses always approach in pairs.
Hopefully that works, but you can never tell. It's an unknown.
As Robin mentioned a minute ago, it said the news said hopefully they approach in pairs, but I can tell you from firsthand experience when there is maybe an odd number car group of Jehovah's Witnesses, and let's just say, for example, it's 2 sisters and a brother. Now, it probably wouldn't be considered proper for the brother and one of the single sisters to pair off or whatever. So what would most often happen, and this happened to me, the 2 sisters would pair off to work together, the brother would work by himself. And I can't tell you how many times that's happened. Or maybe you had a full car group in the morning and the person you were working in service with was only out for an hour and you were going to stay out for another hour in service. So, these type of situations where a person is left alone, and not just that, but if you've already knocked on somebody's door on a Saturday morning and spoken to little Bobby at the front door, and now you know Bobby's name and Bobby knows your name and he recognizes your face from coming there last week, how much easier is it for this man to come back on a return visit and say, "Hey Bobby, you remember I was here the other day? I'm a friend of your mom's." How easy is it? Remember, the people who do this kind of stuff, these child predators, are masters of manipulation and masters of disguise. They are with you in your congregation right now and you don't even know it.
Well, children are trusting. They're trusting, and especially Jehovah's Witness children of other Jehovah's Witnesses. They're not maybe necessarily as trusting of worldly people, but this is a brother. So this is just very dangerous, and it's shining a light on what so many people have been saying for years about the problem within the organization that those within the congregation don't even know.
Mr. Ivery, by all accounts, has lived an upstanding life since his conviction in 1992. He served his time, but Jehovah's Witnesses doesn't allow him to hold positions of authority or to counsel children with its own ministry. However, he's allowed to volunteer by going door to door, something that could be seen as hypocritical. The church allowing an ex-convict to knock on your door.
Something else I thought very interesting, the reporter here mentions that even within the organization, this person, this Waymon Ivery, and others like him who have been convicted of such crimes are not allowed full privileges within the congregation. They have restrictions. And yet, no one is told why they have restrictions. Have you ever been in a congregation where there's, maybe brothers who just don't seem to reach out? They don't seem to be doing much. They're there at the meetings, but you think to yourself, well, maybe they're not spiritually strong. Well, maybe they're not allowed to hold privileges in the congregation for some reason or another. Do you know that? Do you know why? Have you asked that person why they don't do things? Are they allowed to hold privileges? Guess what? You probably wouldn't be told the truth if you asked.
No.
But it's something to consider, because as you're a member of a congregation, you really do try to give people the benefit of the doubt. But you cannot allow yourself to be foolish by hiding your head in the sand and closing your eyes to the proof that is sitting right in front of you.
You can't be complacent. Even though a person is a brother or a sister, you don't really know that person. And you're not going to be told, you're not going to be warned. If you're a parent with children and there's a child molester in your congregation, are you going to be told? I don't think so. I don't think so.
No, it's actually policy not to tell.
We wanted to know why. Mr. Delaney, this is Carlos. An elder at Kingdom Hall congregation said he would help, but never followed through. When I finally spoke to another local elder by phone, he told us he would get back to us.
I think that I could arrange for today.
Okay. Yes, sir. I'd appreciate that. Our deadline is 3 o'clock this afternoon. But that deadline came and went. So we called the main offices of...
Good afternoon, Jehovah's Witnesses.
How quickly after that reporter got off the phone with that elder do you think he called the legal department? Speed dial, man.
There was no way that elder was going to call that reporter back.
No way.
You're Waymon Ivery? Yeah, and who are you?
This all came to a head after Roman Vargas confronted Waymon Ivery in a Colorado Springs neighborhood.
You're a convicted, violent child rapist?
The YouTube video had thousands of views and many angry comments in only days before it was taken down. In the video, Ivery denied the charges.
No, you got it all wrong.
But we found out that Ivery had indeed served less than a year of a 10-year sentence for the attack on the young girl. So we knocked on Mr. Ivery's door in the Springs.
Now, what do
Talking
you
about
want?
your past.
No, absolutely not.
Sir? Initially, Ivery wouldn't talk to us, but eventually did so because...
I feel like dirt.
He claims serving as a ranger in Green Beret in Vietnam and Desert Storm caused him post-traumatic stress disorder.
All right, this really ticks us off.
First of all, I'm surprised the reporter let him get away with this a little bit, but we have to stop this and make a defense here because this man, this criminal, says he's using it as an excuse that he served in the Gulf and Iraq War and has post-traumatic stress disorder.
I don't doubt that he does.
But I can tell you this, that is an insult to every other person, man and woman, that has served in the military, in the armed forces, and who has gone through those difficulties and has not molested their 9-year-old stepdaughter. This is a special case of a person who has clearly got something wrong. They're clearly a pedophile. But to say that post-traumatic stress was a cause of this, I'm just going to flatly deny it and defend those members of the military because that is a slander to them as human beings and
As people who have served our country and done so under circumstances that we can't even imagine. You don't come back and rape a child. There's no connection between those two things.
No, people with this certain despicable predilection, it's been in them for a long time. It's in their DNA.
But says now that he takes full responsibility.
What I did was extremely wrong.
Since the religious group refused to talk to us officially, we asked Ivery why he thought Jehovah's Witnesses allowed him to go door to door knowing about his past. Is it on them at all?
They allow this simply because they have a safety net in place, and that safety net is sending 2 or more people to each door that they go to. I don't go to, and I have not gone to doors by myself, and it's not because of the charges on me, but it's just the policy of the witnesses.
2 or more people? 3, 4?
There is no safety net. And the elders will tell you, well, we're not the police. We can't police everybody. And, you know, we do the best we can. We keep an eye on them. If they're working, you know, on a Kingdom Hall building project, you know, we have to try to keep an eye on them in different circumstances. But, I mean, they can't. They can't. And they don't warn people that this is a possibility.
We know the elders aren't the police, but do you know who is the police? The police! That's what they are there for, to investigate any and all accusation of wrongdoing. They have investigators. They are prepared for this. Professionally trained counselors, doctors, therapists. I mean, this whole system is built to stop guys like this. And yet the Jehovah's Witnesses do not rely on their expertise and try and handle everything in-house so as not to slander the name of Jehovah.
Yes, Jehovah's Witnesses are evolving their policies as set forth in the Elders Handbook. And for those of you that may still believe that it's not the real Elders Handbook, it is. It was submitted into evidence for the Australian Royal Commission, the actual Shepherding the Flock of God book. So it's not a falsified version of that book. And we also know that there was a letter that went out to the body of elders just in the past month updating some of those policies in regard to child abuse. So they're doing things to improve the policy because they're being forced to do that. If they weren't being forced to do it by the governments, by the officials, they wouldn't have done anything to change their policies. So, safety net, I don't buy it. It's not a safety net. The safety net would be that the Watchtower would say anybody who has been charged, convicted of a crime of this nature is not to go house to house.
Yeah. And the other safety net too would be to notify the members of the congregation. The same way, if a sexual predator moves into your neighborhood, they have to, by law, make you aware that they're on the sex abuser registry and all of that information. I mean, that is a by law thing that they have to do. And yet, someone can, in his neighborhood, his neighbor might know he's a sex offender because he had to report it to them by law when he moved in, but he sure didn't tell any of the brothers and sisters in the congregation because that's the one place that you can completely hide as a pedophile, as a sex offender, because no one, the elders view it as violating your privacy. It's more important for them to protect your privacy than to protect the children in the congregation. And I can't tell you how many times we've heard it directly from elders that we've known and asked us a question about something, not even as bad as something about that, and they say, I cannot tell you. I cannot tell you. If someone made an accusation against us,
It's
we say,
confidential.
who made the accusation? I cannot tell you.
It's confidential.
So they will do what they can to protect this person, even though he does not deserve to be protected. People need to know what he is. And great, if the guy's changed, great.
Yeah.
You know, many experts believe that that's not possible.
Right?
So, do you want to take a chance with your child in a congregation with a guy who may or may not be rehabilitated? Do you want to be on the watch like that 24/7? I would rather know.
But our interview with Ivery raised more questions about others with serious criminal pasts who could be knocking on your door next.
Some people that have been committed of crimes like what I committed, they have more restriction on them than I do.
Now, we'd like to be extremely clear. Neither Ivery or Jehovah's Witnesses are committing a crime. In fact, last year in California, appeals court, it ruled that the church was under no obligation to warn congregants of a sex offender in their midst, calling it, quote, burdensome, unquote. That overturned a ruling in favor of a young woman who was molested as a child in the church. Ivery, who was registered as a sex offender in Colorado and Wisconsin, promised News 5 that he'll never volunteer to go door to door again. Sidebar, we're still waiting to hear back from Jehovah's Witnesses regarding their door-to-door policy on convicted criminals.
Yeah, they're going to be waiting a long time to hear back from the society about that. All right, so we're not going to get into all of the information about the policies of Jehovah's Witnesses, and you know, we do want to cover that at some point because that's an important one to make. But so many people have made great videos exposing that right now that's not really as important for us to do. But
And I just think it's important that John Cedars had released a video just a couple of days ago where he had actually spoken with Waymon Vargas and had a little more inside information. And we saw that video when it came out, so That's how we know a little bit more than is stated in this news story, so that we know for sure that the information we have is correct, but that information is now gone with the video, so hopefully John Cedars will find a way to re-upload that, maybe without the original content, so we can all have that information back again. But there was additional information that we did see right as it happened. Unfortunately, those videos were taken down also.
Yeah.
So there's always more to the story, but we suggest that you guys, especially active Jehovah's Witnesses, please investigate. The name for the Elder's Secret Handbook is The Shepherd, the Flock of God. You can Google it, you will find it. There are links to the PDF file to get the entire publication.
Yeah.
So please investigate for yourselves and be on the watch. Be careful, everybody.
Yeah. So the reason why we're coming to you about this, not only is it topical because it just happened, but it sort of falls in line with something that we are very emotionally invested in right now. We live in Palm Beach County, Florida, and it's come to our attention that someone that we know very well was in fact a victim and of who we believe was an elder at the time, and we really need people to come forward. So this is sort of a plea that if you live in Palm Beach County, Florida, and you were molested, if you know of someone who was molested or raped, we need you to come forward because justice needs to be served. And although it might be past the statute of limitations, that doesn't matter. We need to build a case against this person, and I can't give any more specific than that, but it's just people need to come forward and not be afraid. And you may think we're apostates or people that are disfellowship that are speaking out against other. This is real. This happened, and it doesn't matter what we are now. This is very important. So this is just a plea that we hope to get some activity.
And just so everyone who's watching this knows, this isn't just the two of us on our own mission here. There are professionals, there are police, there are lawyers, there are real professional people involved. So this is an ongoing thing, and like Robin said, we know it's not going to be easy for people to maybe dredge up bad things that happened to them in the past, awful things that shouldn't have happened, that they should have been protected from. But the information that we gather now can help protect the young children who are still being dragged to the meetings by their parents. And one more victim, if we can just stop from one more kid being victimized, that would be a win.
Yeah.
So as any help that anyone can offer, you can contact us at whatsupwatchtower@gmail.com or just hit us up on our website, whatsupwatchtower.com.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is a tough video to make and very emotional. It's been a very emotional time since we've learned of what happened to someone that we know. And, it's time for people to come forward. Not just us and about this case, about Palm Beach County, Florida, but even if it's way in the past, it happened a long time ago, it's past the statute of limitations, there is help available out there, and we need to bring justice. That's what needs to happen.
And I think people's stories need to be heard, because how many people had gone to the elders with a problem that they had, something happened to them, and the elders were dismissive, or maybe didn't even believe them. Mm-hmm. Well, we believe you. Making an accusation like that, no one would take that lightly, especially coming from a child. So the fact that people aren't believing and or dismissing and or letting Jehovah sort these cases out is unacceptable. We live in the modern world where things can be done to prevent this kind of stuff. So it's time for all of us to do our part and protect each other in the best way possible.
Absolutely.
So with that said,
Thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe. And thanks for watching. We just really appreciate all of you, and we appreciate your support. So have a great rest of your day.
see you later.
Bye.